how will they force you to stop eating meat? Well, they'll chemicalize the cows, drug and poison them until all the cows are dead. And yes, that's exactly what's starting to happen. Take a listen to these farmers.
It's the law since this year that we have to feed 80 days of Bovaer to our cows.
And my opinion on Bovaer is I don't want it on my farm and you don't want it in your food.
Farmers are being pushed by the government to poison our cows and our food supply with the chemistry drug called Bovaer.
It's just poison for our cows. They get sick from it.
Cows getting sick, cows not eating, cows falling dead.
And we are now standing on Monday at the last cow. She can also not stand anymore. All have a lack of calcium, the ones who are laying down, and they just simply stop with eating. If this will continue, all animals get sick.
This story is disturbing on a whole new level. I wish I were making it up. As of last month, October 2025, Denmark is now forcing large dairy farms to cut methane emissions from their cows, and the main way they're doing this is with a patented feed additive called Bovaer. By feeding this chemical to the cows, it's designed to stop cows from burping out as much methane, with the goal being to reduce greenhouse gases and fix climate change. Now, while this may sound altruistic and very heroic, this is actually terrifying on so many levels. Yes, for the cows, but also for us. And so in this video, we are going to cover how the chemical Bovaer can threaten the health of you and your family. Now, you may be thinking, wait, Lillie, didn't you just say this is happening in Denmark? I don't live in Denmark. Why should I care? Well, I think this farmer did a good job explaining why this is so important.
We really want to stop this. We are in big troubles in Denmark. And if it's not stopped in Denmark, it will come to your country where they will push this vile chemistry drug called Bovaer on your animals as well.
Right, so even though there are some shenanigans happening to the cows in Denmark, if they can get away with it, look, it starts to spread. And so this can impact all of us in the long run. And although the use of Bovaer in cattle's feed is supposed to be helping with climate change and reducing methane emissions, in just the past 2 months of this being mandated, many Danish farmers have been filing complaints that their cows are becoming sick, milk yields plunging as much as 40%, widespread diarrhea, the cows suddenly are collapsing, having an inability to walk, not eating, and suddenly dying. Meanwhile, officials are saying that Bovaer is completely safe and that all of this happening to the cows is total coincidence. There's nothing to see here, right? Just like in 2020 when the clickety-clack was totally fine until, oh wait, now we're seeing some malfunctions. But we don't talk about that.
Danish farmers have to feed their cows Bovaer for 80 days every year, whether they like it or not. And if they don't comply, well, they're breaking the law. You will go to prison. Farmers are furious, but they have no choice, of course.
And if you don't do it, it's just like you can go to the prison or you get like a big fine, a really big fine. So most all farmers just do it.
Now, I don't know about you, but I personally would not want to consume the drug Bovaer, nor would I want to give it to like a cute little puppy dog. So why would we give it to a cow? Because at least for me, I would think there would be a domino effect of if this stuff makes the cow act differently, makes the cow sick, then it would therefore likely impact the cow's meat and milk that we consume. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there were Bovaer residues in the meat and milk, as typically when you put something in a human or in an animal, that thing is in there. But I couldn't actually find any reliable regulatory documents, scientific reviews, or any official statements saying that there are residues in the meat. Though, let's say hypothetically there are no residues of Bovaer in the meat. If the cows are becoming more sick, I personally don't want to be eating meat from a sick animal. When I listen to stressful things, I try to find other things that chill me out. Today's video is sponsored by Element. This is an Element sparkling drink. This is the lime flavor. Let me tell you, it tastes like a 7-Up or a Sprite, and it has 0 sugar, 0 caffeine, and it actually is a hydrating drink. It has sodium, potassium, and magnesium, which are critical minerals that help our nerve function and heart health, plus overall hydration. This is my version of a soda, except it's healthy. And if you'd like to check out Element and help support this channel, then use the link in the video description where you'll get 8 free Element packets with any order. With those packets, you can take them traveling, take them to work. They're very portable, but then you just rip open the packet and dump it into some water, mix it up, and again, you've got a very hydrating, flavorful drink. You can get those 8 free packets by going to drinkelement.com/Lillie Kane or clicking that link in the description. Now, the active ingredient in Bovaer is, well, honestly, I don't even know how to say this word, and I don't want to be giving things to cows or personally eating things that I don't know how to pronounce.
3-nitropro blah blah blah. When I see words like this, it's the last thing I want to be putting into my animal's food.
So this active ingredient in Bovaer, it reduces an enzyme in the cow's first stomach, in its rumen, that produces methane. So in theory, if we feed cows this stuff, it'll help cows stop burping out as much methane. Though in reality, we are tampering with the microbes that have contributed to building our ecosystem.
But if we're going to say if cows are contributing to climate change, let's start at home in the United States and understand what our actual relative contributions are from various sources. This is from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. You can find this. This is a 2016 report. But the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions in the United States were industry, transportation, which probably includes cars, but also planes, and electricity generation. Add commercial and residential, and you have essentially more than 90% of US greenhouse gas emissions. Livestock was 3.7%, the lowest contribution. And of that 3.7%, beef was 1.9%. Tell me again how red meat is causing climate change when they're 1.9% of US greenhouse gas emissions. If we wiped out all cattle from the United States, they would produce less greenhouse gases. But presumably we'd need more calories, that would be nutrient-poor calories, to feed people, and we would have to increase the agriculture. So there is really no magical math that can happen here. You can wipe out all of these cows from the United States. That will reduce this 1.9%. But presumably that's going to go over here to the agricultural crops, which also produce greenhouse gases, or into these other pigs, chickens, etc., these other things which we're going to feed people. So where is the magical math that these red meat haters would suggest will magically solve our climate problems?
Cows are not the problem. In fact, they can be part of the solution to help our ecosystem. This is actually a clip from my personal local farmer and what he had to say about cow burps and the claim that their methane is driving climate change.
When we manage cattle with regenerative agriculture, they're actually the single best way to sequester carbon from the atmosphere into the soil, because by grazing off our plants and bringing the animals in, we're managing a solar panel. Our grass is a solar panel. It needs to be green and growing so it can capture sunlight and pull carbon from the air and put it into its roots. But those plants will stop doing that if they get too tall or if they get too short. And so what we do with our cows is they come in, they graze those plants off, so they reset it, they prune that solar panel so it doesn't get too tall, and then they leave and it rests. And that graze, rest, recovery is actually a cycle of pulling carbon from the air into the plant roots, and then when those plants get grazed, they actually release that carbon into the soil and in turn pick up water and other minerals from soil microbiological activity, because our soils are living and alive instead of dead and sterilized. And so that cycle actually builds health, and year after year we're pulling more carbon from the atmosphere, putting it into our soil, which then produces more healthy soil, which then produces more grass, which then allows us to graze and produce more cattle. People say, well, they burp and they release methane and it's greenhouse gas. Here in the last few years has actually discovered that in healthy regenerative grazed soil that is biologically living and active, there are microbes that are present nowhere else, which is to say you can't find them just to take a sample of soil from a GMO crop field or a poorly grazed field. But if you take a field that's been regeneratively grazed with cattle for several years, that soil has microbes in it that break down methane. They didn't think there was a microbe that could handle methane. As it turns out, they do, and when they measure the total amount of them, it turns out that the microbes in that soil that support, say, 100 cows are actually capable of breaking down the methane from way more than 100 cows. So they're actually, it's a methane sink, just nobody knew it.
Who would have thought? Mother Nature, God's creation, was perfectly designed. Managed grazing, healthy pastures, rich soils help capture and recycle methane naturally. We don't need to re-engineer a cow. Denmark doesn't have a cow problem. They have a soil problem, a policy problem, and paid politicians. Because again, feeding cows Bovaer is a mandated, patented food additive. And I don't know about you guys, but when the words mandated and patented are in the same sentence, to me, that doesn't sound like food freedom or farmer freedom. It sounds more like corporate influence, centralized control, and policies that end up benefiting big companies rather than the people who are actually producing the food.
Livestock here have become the lab rats. Farmers have become the enforcers, unwillingly, and the financiers. They're the ones paying for it all. Now, a lot of small farmers, they can't afford these chemical additives. They can't afford carbon credit audits. This direction is going to shut down small farms, not just in the US, but in Europe, all around the world. So what it actually ends up looking like in the future is massive consolidation by giant corporations that are waving a green flag saying, look at what we did. We destroyed your food supply. We took complete control over it. And now we're putting chemicals in your food from the very beginning.
I find it ironic that typically the people who care most about saving the planet, climate change, are the same people who typically care about animal welfare. But in this case, it's totally fine to experiment on animals and ultimately on the humans who eat those animals because we don't know what this stuff does long term. It seems like we're caring more about chemicals over common sense and patents over pastures. To me, this whole Bovaer food additive seems a lot like other things that the government kind of does and sees what they can get away with. Like glyphosate, like some clickety-clacks. Let's just see who's gonna pay attention. To me, Bovaer is a symbol of having less faith and trust in Mother Nature, thinking that God's creation is flawed and that we know better, we are smarter, so therefore let's, do some shenanigans. I'm sure this video is coming off with some conspiracy theory vibes, but I'm over here like, why would somebody think by adding chemicals to an animal, it is going to have no side effects and be only upsides and beneficial? I feel like a 5th grader would know, hey, why are we doing something funny that we can't pronounce? Why are we adding this to Mother Nature? Doesn't make any sense. Of course, there will be side effects. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Would you trust eating Mother Nature food or mandatory government patented food additives where if the farmers don't comply, they can risk going to prison? I'm doing my small little part over here and sharing this story with you guys, and hopefully you can tell your family, friends, share this video, so that way more people hear about these things, because when more people know, then change can happen. Don't be silly, subscribe to Lillie, and if you enjoyed this video, I know you're gonna get a kick out of this one.